What's up everybody, Net Alliance back, and today I'm going to be ranking down all 17 Pixar films from worst to best. Now before I begin, my opinions are going to be different from yours, especially in some categories, and I already know I'm going to get the hate right away in the very beginning, so just stick around to the end, hear what I have to say about it, and if you still don't like my opinion, that's okay. We're allowed to have separate opinions, because this is America. So let me know how you would rank these films in the comments below. Now without further ado, let's begin here. At number 17, I'm going with Cars 2. I think this is probably on everyone else's list. Every other list I've seen about like Pixar films, everyone talks about Cars 2 as being like the low point of Pixar, and it really is in my opinion. I think I feel like I should defend myself on why, but I think everyone already knows. I mean, Cars 1 was actually pretty good to me, and I feel as though that it wasn't the best out of all the Pixar films. It was definitely a step backwards compared to what Cars 1 was. You know, the story was completely different. It didn't feel like it grabbed me as much. You know, it almost felt like, why the hell are cars spies? Like, out of all the stories you could be going with, you decided to make it about spies. And I heard Cars 3 is going to try to rectify that mistake and really, you know, bring back what made Cars 1 so good. And that is what I'm waiting for sure. So, I guess we won't know until we see it. But until then, number 17 is Cars 2. Now real quick, I want to clarify that Cars 2 is probably the only Pixar film I just do not like. All the rest of them I do like, but there are some I like more than others. So that's what I'm going to be doing this list off of. So me putting one of your favorites at 16 is not me saying that it is just god-awful. It's just I don't prefer that one as much as my number 1 or even my number 15 slot. So please try to keep it civil in the comments. Thank you. Now on to number 16, I have Ratatouille. To me, this movie just didn't grab me. I have watched it about 2 times since it came out, and maybe that is my fault. Maybe I should go back and check it out again now that I'm older and I can kind of understand things a little more. I just remember like not really caring about the movie, you know, I just didn't grab me. The humor was okay. I remember like laughing at a few jokes in it, you know, but it just didn't show me a good story. It didn't hold my attention like I wish it would. And so when I hear people talk about it, especially like on Screen Junkies, when they're explaining that Ratatouille is one of the best, I just don't understand it. That doesn't make sense to me. But I mean, like I said, this is my personal list, so let me know if you guys like Ratatouille or not in the comments below. Now coming in at number 15, I have Inside Out. Now this one is probably going to be the one that's really going to spark controversy on this list. Personally, I just didn't feel for the film. I didn't really care for it. I watched the entire thing just the other day, and I just, you know, it just didn't grab me like some people said. I feel like it's almost the same thing in Ratatouille. You know, people will defend this film until their death, and I don't understand it. It just doesn't grab me like I said. So I mean, there's nothing else for me to say. Yeah, the Bing Bong part is sad, I guess, but I don't necessarily care. And I understand why people like this film because it kind of explains for why people's emotions are sometimes haywire, even in your real life, which is a good message, you know, just to show people, to give kids especially reasons to see like how people can be different and why their emotions can really affect the way they are and how they act. And it sends a good message, but it just isn't that great of a film in my opinion. That's why it's number 15. Now at number 14, I have Brave. It's kind of falls in the same category as Ratatouille and Inside Out for me. And not that like people really defend Brave, it's just, you know, I just didn't really care about it. I mean, it was more of a fun story. I'd rather watch that more than Inside Out or Ratatouille in my personal opinion, just because of, you know, the action and the story actually isn't too bad. It's a fun little dumb movie, so I mean it does its job. Now at number 13, we have Monsters University for me. It's a pretty fun film, but it's not nearly as good as the first one at all. It will keep you entertained, you know. It's definitely better than Brave, but it's not nearly as good as some of the ones you'll see down the list for sure. So that's why I have that there. I don't know what to say about it. Anything else, you know, the story is okay, you know. It kind of shows the introduction to the monsters we actually fell in love with in the first film, and it does a good job at setting up kind of into what we see them in the first Monsters Inc., which is exactly what it's supposed to do. It's a prequel, so it did a good job for what it was, but it's not that good of a film. On to number 12, we have WALL-E. Now, WALL-E for me was a really good film. I actually enjoyed the whole idea of, you know, the last robot on Earth still working because he's a robot, and that's what he was programmed to do. He never realized that he could stop. You know, even after the humans left, they're so stuck to the wheelchairs and stuff. It's a great idea. The reason I like this film is because it really is a play on our world, you know, especially specifically America. You know, people get fat, lazy, and they just kind of, you know, rely on technology to allow themselves to get fat and lazy. You know, and it is a good little nod to what society is becoming and what we are becoming if we don't watch how much trash we are making, watch how much we're exercising. You know, bad things will happen, and that's exactly the way the world is going. So I think it sends a positive message, and it is a pretty good film, but not as good as some of the other ones we have down the list. Going on to number 11 is the first Cars. Now, I like the first Cars because it has a really fun story to me. You know, it's a cool little story, like a guy who had everything that loses everything and then slowly realizes that everything he had really wasn't what he wanted, and what he really wanted was a true family. You know, it's kind of like the idea of a person who has money and all this fame and fortune, and they lose that fame and fortune. They think they lose themselves, but they realize that that wasn't who they really were anyways. And when they actually find someone they care about or something that's more important to them than just money, they're more themselves with these other people instead of all that extra money and rich people and the people that don't really care about them, you know. And that's a great story, a great message to kind of send to people, that just because you have all this stuff, all this money, you know, you have a mansion and stuff, doesn't mean that you're a good person, doesn't mean you are who you're supposed to be. So it's a good message, and I definitely do like this film. It's just a fun film, and I like it. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for putting this one at number 10, but for number 10, I have Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3 for me just isn't as good as the second or the original. It is still a very good film, though. I just want to clarify that now. I'm not shitting on Toy Story 3. I'm not saying it's the worst film ever. It's just my 10th favorite out of all the Pixar films. You know, it has a pretty good story. You know, it brings all the lovable characters back. You know, it introduces a pretty cool villain. You know, they have a fun time. I mean, it's a nice ride, but it's definitely just not as good as the originals, in my opinion. So, like I said, that's my opinion. So let me know how much you hate me in the comments below. Anyways, moving on to number 9, I have Up. Now, Up to me was a really fun film. I mean, I heard people like criticizing the ending part, and the rest, like the whole movie besides the beginning part, is just bad. And I don't understand that. That film was so fun to me, you know. The jokes landed every time. I like the whole old man and little kid dynamic they had going on there. You know, the dogs were funny. I had a good time watching this film. Whenever I see Up on TV, I make sure to just sit down and watch it, or at least record it until next time, because it is a really good, fun film to me. You know, of course, the beginning is very sad, and one of the most sad beginnings out of the rest of the Pixar films. But I mean, I'm not comparing the most sad parts in Pixar films. You know, this is the overall my favorites in this film. So Up is number 9, and I really do like Up, so you can tell how much I like the rest of the films you're going to be seeing on this list. Now for number 8, I have the most newest entry in the Pixar films, Finding Dory. This movie is a really good movie. It's so nice. It really just brings you back to the whole, you know, Finding Nemo nostalgia you have, and it kind of goes on a new adventure with Dory as the main focus, as you couldn't tell from the title of the film. And it kind of goes in a way that you weren't expecting it. You know, when you first hear Finding Dory, you're thinking, oh, wow, it's definitely just gonna, you know, she's gonna get lost and they're gonna have to find her. But there's a little more to it than that. So it is pretty cool. I don't want to spoil too much about the film. I just wanted to say it's at number 8 for me, and on to the next one. At number 7, I have The Good Dinosaur. You know, people really just look down upon this film for reasons I don't actually understand. I'll admit, it is a little, you know, cliche in moments, and the beginning is a little lame. But after the beginning part, I think the movie really does pick up. It becomes a fun little adventure about a kid and his dinosaur, I guess you could say. Or I should say a dinosaur and his kid. It's a good film. I mean, I had a fun time watching it. You know, I like the characters. You know, I guess the pterodactyls were a little lame in my opinion, but besides that, you know, the T-Rexes were cool. It was cool to see T-Rexes who were actually good guys for once, which is a different thing to see. So it's pretty cool to see that, and that's all I got to say about that film. Now, these next 6 were so tough to pick. I mean, I thought the rest of the list was hard until I got down to the top 6 for me. It was so hard to pick which one I liked more, you know, so I just went by which one I'd rather watch the most and which one I'd rather watch the least. So for number 6, I'm going with Toy Story. Now, this is the original Toy Story, and it was the one that started it all. We all know that this was the first Pixar film. This was the one that really showed what animation can really do, and this is what put Pixar on the map. You know, we wouldn't have all these newer movies if it wasn't for this film. So I definitely got to make sure that it is number 6, not only because of that fact, but also because it's a good film. You know, it's a good, fun film. It's something I grew up with. I used to actually leave my house and think like, oh, you know what? Like, I'll leave my room quick and then I'll try to sneak in and catch my own toys talking, you know? And it was just a fun little film, and it really just stands the test of time, you know? Although the animation is a little more uglier compared to some of the newer stuff, clearly it's a 20-year-old film now, I mean, but it is still a very good film, and that is why it's number 6 for me. Now we're getting down to the final 5 here. Now, at number 5, I have A Bug's Life. This film was so awesome to me when I was a kid. You know, I used to actually look at ants and go, oh man, I don't want to kill you because, you know, you got an adventure to go on and you got to watch out for birds and watch out for those grasshoppers, those darn grasshoppers. I'd see grasshoppers and be like, get away from those ants, and like pick out the grasshoppers out of my yard and throw them out in another yard or something. Like, I don't know. I was a dumb kid. But this film really made you think about how small things are, you know, how insignificant ants are to this giant world, and there's different things they have going on, and you know, it makes you really feel for these creatures. So I gotta give it number 5. At number 4, I have Monsters, Inc. It's a fun film. It's a great film. It's something that I can't even describe. It's that good. You know, the animation really does hold up. You know, Sully's fur still looks really cool. You know, it looks just as good as some of the newer Pixar films we see, and it really does stick up as well in the story wise and stuff. You know, in the end, it promotes the fact that laughter is just as good as screams, if actually even better, like 10 times better, I think they said, than actual screams. And it sends a good message that, you know, monsters in your closet aren't that big of a deal. You know, it kind of shows for kids that, you know, the monsters in your closet really don't have to bother you if you don't let them, and I think it shows a good positive message to kids. Now at number 3, I have Toy Story 2. This film is here because not only is it an improvement upon the first film, it really just made me love it when I first went to see it in theaters. You know, this I think is actually the first Pixar film I actually went to see in theaters. Didn't get to catch the first one, but I did get to see this one. I went with my one friend, and we had a great time watching this film. This film was so funny. You know, all the different shenanigans they go through. You know, the villain was just perfect. The whole backstory, introducing Jesse, was good. You know, I just think it was a great film, and that's why it is number 3. Now at number 2, I have Finding Nemo. This film is such a good film. This is probably my top 15 films of all time, so you can imagine how good the number 1 on my list is gonna be. But from this, I can honestly say that number 2, Finding Nemo, and the next one you're gonna see, which is the last one I haven't named yet, which you probably know and you've been waiting for, these can be switched out at any time because they are such good films. And I mean, I can't really say anything else about Finding Nemo because we all know how awesome it is. So I guess that's a wrap on that one. And at number 1, The Incredibles. This film is such a perfect superhero film. You know, this film came out before we had the Avengers and, you know, the whole DC thing coming out, and this film really did it right. This is like the Fantastic Four that was done right. You know, it's so perfect because it doesn't come from anything like that. You know, it just came out of nowhere, and it really just made a splash so big, in fact, that I've been waiting for a sequel since that one came out. You know what I mean? When Cars came out, I was like, oh, whatever. When Monsters, Inc. came out, I said, oh, okay, well, I mean, I don't need a sequel, but whatever. You know, even when Finding Nemo came out, I never really said, oh, you know, I would like a sequel to that, you know? And when Incredibles 1 came out, I finished that film, I said to myself, when does the sequel come out? And I think everyone on Earth has been asking that question. Incredibles 2 is probably the only real sequel out of all these films that people really, really wanted besides the Toy Story films. And I cannot wait for it to come out because it comes out like 2019 or something like that. So they're working on it. Thank the Lord. I just can't wait for it. So that's it. That's my ranking of these lists. How do you guys feel? What is your ranking? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy my videos. And until next time, guys, see ya.